All right. I'll get us started in 1 second. All right. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
3, 2. What's up, everybody? What's up, Commanders fans? Welcome into Believe in Commanders. We're so glad you're joining us. I was away for a week in Disney, but Anthony held down the show. Love that episode with Lake Lewis. A lot of nuggets. Everybody knows Lake. That was great stuff, Anthony. But AAA, how are you doing, my friend? It's good to see your face after a week off.
Man, I'm good. I'm good. Glad to see you as well. Got some work going on down here at the house that they're wrapping up right now. So hopefully the efficiency is much better after this spray foam. We added some spray foam to the in the attic. Yeah. So
there you go. Well, here in Georgia, it is heated up. We skipped over what little bit of spring we had, and it's basically summer. But football talk never stops. We are, despite the temperature, we're only in March for one more week, and then we're going into draft season. So we've got a fun little show to talk more about the draft and the Commanders, specifically what they're going to do with the draft. We got a guest that is going to join us here in just a second. But tell us about our sponsors, our guys at Bet Online, AAA.
Oh, the folks over there at Bet Online, they're absolutely awesome. If you haven't been there, be sure you go check it out. The website is betonline.ag. It's been the number one spot to do all of our NFL betting. You can also do NBA, NHL, esports. They got some golf over there as well. Even XFL action is over there at betonline.ag. And they've been so kind, so courteous, so friendly to make a nice code for anybody who uses it for their first time. The code is BLEAV. They've been giving out a 50% welcome bonus. So a few weeks back, the Commanders were plus 2,500 odds to win the NFC. You could go and make a $100 bet, get $50 back on that. So Believe is where the game starts, and it is definitely a fun place to hang out for all your sports betting needs, football season or not. Check them out at betonline.ag.
They have little draft props in there too. You can bet on who you think, like whether it's going to be an offensive or defensive player, best odds to go first overall. So you can jump in there when the draft comes around as well. Well, we want to talk about the draft and specifically what the Commanders might do. We know about the free agency moves they've made. They brought in Wiley, they brought in Gates, Jacoby Brissett, Cameron Dantzler, some guys that you talked with Lake Lewis about last week. But now there's some holes. There's still some holes to be filled, and we thought we'd bring in a guy that I think a lot of Commanders fans might know about, and that is Adam Aniba with the Burgundy and Gold Report. Adam, welcome in, my friend. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun. Leading up to April, that's when draft season, but me, it's all year round. So I just look forward to always talking about this stuff.
Yeah. So tell us, you've been growing up in DC, the Maryland suburbs forever. You've been doing this for a long time. So you're not just some fan out there that just kind of throwing up clipboards and bulletin boards. You've been doing this for a long time with the Scouting Academy. Tell us a little bit about yourself for those that don't know you.
I started, of course, by being a fan, but in the early 90s, I was just someone that always had notes. I was doing mock drafts before people were talking about it, making my own scenarios from, first round and seventh round. And about 7 years ago, started the Burgundy and Gold Report. And then over the last 3-4 years, about 4 years ago, like you said, about when I attended the Scouting Academy, some great guys there, Louis Riddick, Scott Pioli, a lot of former NFL GMs really teaching, the ins and outs and trying to, separate yourself as a fan and an evaluator. So, it's just been fun along the way, interviewing, some guys. And I just kind of happened to fall into, small school and HBCU prospects. Darius Leonard was one of the first HBCU guys that, I really did a deep dive in. And, during that draft, a lot of people just didn't know. And I was glad to be, one of the outlets to really, bring some exposure. But since then, over the past 3 years, Kyle Duggar, second round, the Pats, Joshua Williams, Fayetteville State, went to the Chiefs last year. This year, we talked to Justin Ford of Montana State. And, these are the names that people, they get in the second, third round. You see teams like Seattle saying, who are these guys? Well, these are those guys that, really have to do a deep dive in. And, what we are taught is, 5-8 games before you can really come to any kind of conclusion. So, it's a work in progress for me, but yeah, I love what I do, man.
I like it. I like to hear that the 5 and 8 games and to really get a good idea on a player, because I know the highlights get watered down. Sometimes when you watch tape and it's all the good plays, that doesn't tell you the story. That just tells you, the splash plays or just how things happened. I know when I look at players, and I have not been to the scouting academy, so I don't have the credentials you do, Adam. But when I look at players, I always want to see their best game. I want to see their statistically worst game, and then I wanted to see a game to where they were playing up or down to talent. And if I have a chance to actually, see, hey man, they went up against Alabama and they held their own, then that means something to me. Regardless if they lost 60-6, he held up against Alabama. But I don't want to take this whole stage right now. But let's get this thing rolling.
Yeah, so we know. I think we, as Commanders fans and as a Commanders show, and Adam, you have a show about the Burgundy and Gold as well. We're all kind of thinking the same idea, right? Cornerback, offensive lineman, maybe a linebacker in there. So straight up, if the Commanders stay at 16, who are you looking at? Is there a position you prefer over the other? What do you think the Commanders do there?
Like you said, offensive tackle, interior offensive lineman, cornerback. To me, those are, the top three. You keep hearing guys like, Cole Kincaid, tight end, Utah. I just don't see them doing that. It's not as much as my faith in that Ron Rivera, the evaluator, get the right guy, but it was kind of a tell during free agency, like second tier guys. And, what I'm seeing is Leno is not going to go anywhere. So I think that, although I'm high on a lot of offensive tackles in this class, Broderick Jones, Georgia, Antoine Harrison, Oklahoma, Paris Johnson, OSU, you can keep going. So one of those guys are probably going to be available, but I'm really leaning towards that situation we saw last year, that they're going to have a couple guys on their board, including offensive tackles, where they could possibly trade back. And that's why I think this draft is just extremely deep. I think they're going to go cornerback. I really do, because I think that once they do a deep evaluation, they'll see that, a guy like Leno, they can, he's more than serviceable for this year. Maybe they hope for a little longer, but, Benjamin St-Juste hasn't been able, 12 games missed in 2 years. Kendall Fuller, although he's 27, sometimes you think he's 34, just on, the up and down play. So I think to me, it's a no brainer. We saw them get Cam Dantzler from Minnesota, but again, this is a guy a former third rounder who's been up and down. It's been since 2013 since they selected Carlos Rogers. So I think cornerback is, the likely pick. And, the guys that, I've done a deep dive so far, Devin Witherspoon of Illinois, I think he's the first one to come off the board. Christian Gonzalez from Oregon. And right now, my two favorite after those guys is Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State, a big guy, 6'2", really long. I think that a lot of fans are going to be caught up that he's played, predominantly a lot of press coverage. But the thing is, I really do believe what I heard from Del Rio, earlier in the season last year, is that they really want to try to get more physical at the line. And it didn't happen. You basically play to your personnel. So I think this year, the investment in Daron Payne, it actually means a lot for the cornerbacks, because I think that allows them to play a lot closer, get more physical. And, a guy like Joey Porter, then a guy just put out a scouting report today, Deontay Banks from Maryland, is another really physical corner. So to me, we talk about value, what they're trying to do this year. Ron Rivera, he'll say all the right things about building a team for the future, but this is hot seat year for him. So I think out of all the positions of need, a guy that they get at 16, or even, like I said, a trade back a couple as a cornerback, will be able to contribute right away. Offensive tackle, as much as we want to have that, if we need that, I don't see them stepping in playing right away. I think with the acquisition of Wiley from Kansas City at right tackle, Leno at left tackle, they're making some moves. They got the kid almost literally lost his leg for the Giants. Is going to play, center if Roulier can't go right away. So I think that they're again doing some wholesale changes on the offensive line, but they can't get away with that at the cornerback position. So that's where I see them.
And this is probably not going to happen. Very small likelihood in my eyes. But in what scenario would you see Washington making a move to jump up in the draft? Is there a player that you think that they'd be chasing after that would just coerce them to maybe jump up into like maybe 12 or 11 or somewhere up there to get a guy?
No, and I believe them. Not that everyone should be so sold on Sam Howell, Jacoby Brissett, but I don't see them. The only way is if you're talking about if Young or Stroud, even though there's all this talk about Richardson, if anybody's truly broke him down, this guy's he's a ways off from being a franchise quarterback. And to me, someone will take him in the top 20, but he's a bit of a stretch. So you're talking about Young or Stroud. If they somehow, one of those guys drops out of the top 12, that's a realistic trade up. But other than that, into the top 10, you're talking about mortgaging their future. And I think Ron Rivera knows he doesn't have one right now. So they're really going to roll with, who they have a quarterback. So I don't see any other position that they'd really, move up anything significantly. I think, again, trade back's more likely. I think that they're really going to hold their hat on being able to get guys like Robinson, Cole Turner, guys that they were able to get in that trade back and still get a guy like Jahan Dotson. So to me, I think that's the most likely scenario. And you'll still be able to get a premier blue chip cornerback, even if you do that.
Okay. All right. I like that.
We've had this discussion already on our show, Adam. I think Anthony was going to go offensive lineman, and I went cornerback. So I was kind of with you there. So I know the board kind of evolves as the draft goes on. But so if you take a corner in round 1, are you looking at offensive line in round 2? Who are some guys that might be available there? And maybe along those lines, between corner and offensive line, which class or which position group do you think is the deepest to where you could get some potential starter round 1 value even in a round 2 or 3?
Yeah, I think cornerback is still it. The problem is I think you're going to see, believe it or not, 5 to 7 cornerbacks going first round. That's my prediction. Ooh. Just looking at the team needs and a lot of the guys out there. So what that's going to do is that's going to push a lot of those offensive linemen into the second round. Osiris Torrance is an interior lineman I wrote on from Florida. A lot of people I know have him first round, but I think just on the amount of quarterbacks, cornerbacks, edge rushers is really strong in this class. Somebody in that with those first round grades is going to be pushed back. And to me, Osiris Torrance, will he be there when Washington picks? Quite possibly, because I do think a guy like Steve Avila, who's another interior lineman for TCU, teams are starting to get enamored with, technique. And although, a guy like Torrance is really good at what he does, and frankly, he made Richardson, have the kind of tape that he put out. Avila, we saw him, in the college football playoffs, just really open up holes for a run game that really wasn't stellar heading into the, to the college football playoffs. So I think that you'll have guys like that dropping. A guy that I don't know how anyone wouldn't consider a center in the second round, because even though, again, they have a guy like Rouillet, but he can't stay healthy. They signed the kid, used to play for the Giants Gates. This guy, John Michael Schmitz, a center from Minnesota, that's a guy.
I like that name too.
10, 15 years, he's your center. And I think if you really want to have Howell have the best opportunity to succeed, although a left tackle is really important. Again, they do have some guys there, but center, we saw them go through 4 or 5, excuse me. So I think that, getting a guy in the second round, that's definitely not a reach, because you're talking about, depth, but you're also talking about somebody that you could expect to play maybe sometime in year 1. So I think in the second round, although fans are going to love to talk about a lot of the linebackers, I love a lot of the linebackers. I'm starting to see a pattern with them. And I don't think that they're just going to put really a ton of premium on those Mike linebackers. I think we're going to see more of, the guy that they just signed from Seattle, Jamin Davis, Cam Curl. They're all going to be in the mix to have that green dot on the back of the helmet, call and play. So it definitely won't be a rookie linebacker, starting this year. And that's why I don't see one in the second round. Maybe if we get lucky, somebody slips, a Jack Campbell, Iowa, Deion Henley, Washington State, I love, that'll go to the third round, and maybe it'll just be, best value for them. But I would not be surprised if we see them get to 4th round, and then they'll 4th or 5th round before they even take a linebacker. I think that they'll really dedicate their resources to the defensive backfield and offensive line.
I like that. Washington's had recent success in the 3rd round, 4th round, and beyond. I mean, some of the guys that are mainstays on this team right now have been, 3rd round and later draft picks. Who are maybe 1 or 2 guys, maybe a guy on offense, maybe a guy on defense that, if not Washington, but just overall fans should have their ears out for, eyes out for, maybe somebody you haven't named. Who do you see as a position or a player that could be there in the later rounds that you should pay attention to?
We start talking in the later rounds. I'll go on some of the guys that I've looked at. Jeez, I just dropped my 20th today. And again, I talked about my interview with Justin Ford. He's a guy in Montana, and a lot of people still have him as a mid to, late round guy in that fourth, fifth round. But again, I loved his tape. I'm breaking down what I see he can do. He's a ball hawk, nearly 6'2", out of Montana. I have him being one of those teams like Seattle, grabbing him maybe in the second, third round, even though most of the league has him in, that fourth, fifth round range. But, that's my guy, Justin Ford, cornerback, Montana, to really look out for, because you're going to see some, HBCU guys, sprinkled in. We saw it with the Deion Sanders. I think that was an HBO show when he featured, what's it called? Jackson State.
Yep.
Aubrey Miller Jr. is a guy that I featured a couple months back. He's a linebacker, not a Mike, but I love that guy. Even if it's not Washington, maybe in the late fifth, sixth round, that's a guy that's just a gamer that's really going to attack the line of scrimmage, that you're going to love to have on special teams. But more of those kind of guys as far as late round grinders. But so far, again, we got a month to go, so I'm still going through the process, hoping to, unearth some gems.
Good stuff. Yeah. So you brought up a position just kind of in passing there at pass rusher. And I saw a scenario and I was kind of thinking through this, and, there are a lot of Twitter scenarios that we see, so you have to sift through some of them. But one of the ones I saw was, would Washington potentially consider an edge rusher in the first or second round, or early, maybe not first or second even, but early enough to be a contributor, knowing that they may or may not have to make a choice between Chase Young and Montez Sweat? Do they kind of go the Eagles route and go for luxury right now with a couple years down the line in the future? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
I'm thinking, if Washington goes that way, is there a pass rusher that you could see them going after that would be a game wrecker, to where they then next year are having to decide between Chase Young and Montez Sweat? They have a young guy already in place.
Yeah, the one dark horse I see for the first round, I haven't gotten into the later round particular dark horses yet, but Georgia's Nolan Smith. He's a guy, undersized edge. The jury's out with some people thinking, would he be better on 3-4 outside linebacker, or he's a straight up edge? But he's, just under 6'3". I think he's came check the boxes around 255. I think it was about. So a lot of people think he's going to slip out of the top 15. To me, that's a guy, he's going to wreak havoc, I think, on the next level pretty quickly. You can use him situational. Would they pull the trigger on that for the future? Again, it's all about Ron Rivera's thinking, because if it's talking about instant impact this year, they're going to really lean on Montez Sweat, even Chase Young coming off that injury to really produce. And I think with Obata and then the other wholesale guys you've seen that they've really brought, no disrespect to them, but, guys that they brought out to be in the rotation, I don't see it happening, but it would really be interesting, like I said, if Nolan Smith just happened to slip to them, because that's a guy you could get situational, and he's going to give you 6-7 sacks on the year. If you just, if you're talking about 30% of the snaps a game in his rookie season, he's that explosive.
I like that one. I like that. That's a name that when I do the mock drafts, his name pops up, and I'm like, ooh, would you take a chance on a guy that has some skills like this? And he could be dangerous. I mean, he could be dangerous. He'll add some speed to a defensive pass rush, and maybe they start throwing in some twists and stunts like that. But let's flip over to the offensive side. And it wouldn't be a Washington podcast if they didn't have a little bit of quarterback controversy. You got to figure that they're going to pick somebody in this draft. I think that you have to. I think it's gotten to the point now where they say you draft a quarterback every year. If you think there's somebody there, what quarterback in those later rounds would be worth getting a flyer on down here in Washington? What quarterback do you think should be able to come in and not necessarily compete for the job, but be in the mix?
Yeah, I'll give you two names. One is Cameron Ward from Washington State. He's another guy, a dual threat, but again, he scrambles to, really open up the action downfield. So he's one that's really kind of gone under the radar. I think he'll be available in that 5th, 6th round range. But again, get back to, my small school roots. Tyson Bagent from Shepherd University. He started picking up a little buzz, didn't really have a great Senior Bowl week, but, threw for over 17,000 yards at his time at Shepherd. And, those two are the kind of guys you're talking about right now with Howell and Brissett, likely they'll probably keep a third quarterback on the roster, but those two guys I mentioned, I don't think they'd be in danger of getting plucked off the practice squad. So you could really develop, one or two of those guys, even both if one of them seemed to, go undrafted, because I definitely think that could happen. But those are two guys that I really did, again, 8 games on each, and I really walked away forecasting, what they would do well on the next level. And with Badgett, like I said, he's a guy, 17,000 yards, but he really could use his feet. He just chose not to a lot of the times, really opening up things downfield. Level of competition is always going to be in question for a guy like that. But, talking about a guy that's 6th, 7th round, yeah, these are guys that you're talking about developing. So those are 2 guys I've zeroed in on.
I would like to see them develop some quarterbacks, especially when they brought in Tavita Pritchard from Stanford, a young guy who should ideally have some longevity in the league. And I mean, if things go well, AB gets a promotion to head coach, he goes to OC, and you never know, he may be starting his own coaching tree in the NFL. Brian, do you have any, one last question for Adam?
Yeah. So I was going to ask, again, the draft unfolds in a bunch of different ways, but come the end of the draft, at the end of the weekend, what is an ideal scenario? Like what do you want to see Washington do? Like, what are some boxes that they need to check for this to be a successful draft, in your opinion, based on some of the guys that you study, but also some of their needs? And you've mentioned Ron Rivera, his philosophy, but what would just be like an A+ draft look like for the Commanders?
I think it would be, again, a situation where in the first, 3 to 4 picks, you've addressed cornerback and offensive lineman maybe 2 times over, because I think, you see all these names in the cornerback room, but it's honestly a bunch of guys that are seconds, maybe, we're talking about Benjamin St-Juste and Fuller, but the rest of them, it's a lot of question marks there. So I think not just one cornerback, 2. And again, we talked about how deep the positions are. Those are 2 positions that are really deep. If you can walk away in those first 4 picks, let's say 2 corners and, interior offensive lineman and a tackle, I think right away you're talking about guys who can probably contribute this year. But A+, I just want to see them, not only get positions of need. I really want to see them anytime that there's value on the board. Even, we talked about pass rushers, even, wide receivers. I want to see them make investments in that. There's been talk about Dame Brown possibly being shopped. So, you have Curtis Samuel, who's a free agent at 24. So although they're looking deep right now, other than McLaurin and Dotson, nothing is certain probably after this year. So you never know what's going to happen. I think an A+ would be just, again, hitting on all the positions need. And, we talk about the running back position, Antonio Gibson, free agent next year. They cut J.D. McKissick. So again, positions that looked solid last year are going to be a lot different looking next year. So to me, it's just really addressing a lot of the positions and, getting the best player on the board. That's what I like to see.
I'm muted like I'm a rookie. One last question for you. You said best player on the board. You're sitting at 16. Bijan Robinson is sitting there. Are you going with a Robin? You say you pass on him or you take him?
As tempted as that is to take him, I would probably really think about it hard. I don't think Washington does. I think that not only because Robinson's upside, I think the whole story with Robinson last year, I think the last thing in this draft we could expect is a 1st-round receiver and a 1st-round running back, because I think those are 2, they're not going to challenge those guys. But that could be a position where you have a valuable trade piece and, there's a couple teams looking to move up and maybe, get a little more than you might have with some other players. Because like I said, I don't think those quarterbacks are going to be slipping. So he might be one of the few guys that can allow you to get, some better picks, even, picks into next year, depending on how far you have to move back. But as much as I love him, yeah, I don't see him doing it. But after that, all bets are off going into the 2nd through 7th rounds.
Yeah,
awesome.
there's some like sweet pieces that I see in this draft that I would love for Washington to do. I just don't. I'm with you. I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger or not. But Adam, we appreciate you joining us on your lunch break, man. We're happy to spend your lunchtime with us. But give us your socials and all that, and where everybody can find your work, so we can see some of these breakdowns and follow you as we get closer to the draft in this next month.
Sure. On Twitter, find me at the B&G Report. You can always find us live on Twitter every Wednesdays, me and Douglas McRae. We do a show, Draft on Tap, where, you know, we have people from the NFL Network, Senior Bowl, anywhere where we can really get them on, just talking about all things draft. I'll always find my content at the Burgundy and Gold Report.com. That's where also my link to my my YouTube channel, the Burgundy and Gold Report, which is B&G Report Happy Hour. Find me on Facebook. My link tree is on Twitter. You can find me there. Again, the Burgundy and Gold Report.com. We're releasing prospect scouting evaluations every week. We just dropped today Deontay Banks from Maryland, our 20th, and we'll go all the way up until draft night. So just check us out, the Burgundy and Gold Report.com.
I love it. Love it. Thanks for making it over here with us, Adam. Appreciate you hanging out, dropping your knowledge.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man.
We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you, brother.
Take it easy, guys.
All right, see ya. Good stuff there.
Yes, it was. That was good to have. Another voice pop in. A Washington fan. Then he's taking it into his own hands to go out there and get some scouting, do some scouting, and learn that side of things. So it's pretty good. It's good to see. I'm very impressed with what y'all Commanders fans out there doing and making of yourselves, man. You just don't yell and scream on Sundays. You do some other things during the week. So thanks to Adam for joining us to talk about the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely going to be checking out what he has there as we lead up, and some of those names I was having to Google. I'm like, but I know that those are going to be names that are going to come up, and hopefully the Commanders take advantage of some of those late round gems. Because you were right, you mentioned they've had guys that are contributing. I mean, Cam Curl is about to get broke off, and he was a 7th round pick. So the draft is so important. It's not just round 1 and round 2. It goes all the way to round 7. So I selfishly wanted to talk a little Commanders news, anything that we've missed over the last week. I know you and Lake broke it down big time with the free agency news. I think Jacoby Brissett might have signed after that episode, but I am thrilled with that pickup there for Jacoby Brissett. I think a veteran quarterback that has had some success, has mentored other quarterbacks before. He seems like the perfect package and the perfect pick there, and I'm really glad that he'll be in the Burgundy and Gold.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett coming in, that steady veteran. He's had success in the league, like you said. And I think the biggest thing is that he will understand that, if they go with Sam Howell, that it's nothing personal. It's not going to – I don't think you're going to see a scenario where he's proclaiming they don't pay me to mentor this guy. So I think he's going to take to it well. I mean, he gets to go in there, play football, compete for a job. If he ends up being the starter, I think that the team still has some success. But, if Howell ends up being the guy, which is what I'm pretty much leaning on, probably 70-30, I think the offense probably can go a step further just because of his youth and his excitement that he'll bring.
Yeah, me too. And I thought it was cool. You mentioned Tavita Pritchard, and I was going to mention this when you brought him up, but he reached out to Andrew Luck, who he played with at Stanford, and so kind of got the A-OK on Jacoby Brissett, just another voice that is lending his backing up the pick for Jacoby Brissett there. So I thought that was cool that Andrew Luck kind of chimed in there, and I think it's great. I think they could have gotten a worse veteran. And I think you're right. I think it's going to push Sam Howell to hopefully be the best that he can be, because this is not – I think with this signing, this is a given that they're going in with a competition in mind. You know what I mean? It's not going to be just given to Sam Howell. I think that's so important. Yeah,
you got two, essentially everybody's running a new offense, but you also have two, one guy who's been across the league and experienced a lot, been up there in New England, I want to say a little bit. So Jacoby's going to come with so much knowledge and experience. And if I'm Sam Howell, I'm leaning on that. I am trying to, stay in Jacoby's hip pocket and just see how he handles things, how he leads, and how he does his job day to day to be a pro. But then when it's time to get on the field, go ahead and showcase your own skills, So that would be my big thing for Sam Howell. But other bits of Commanders news over the weekend, we got a little excited.
Yeah,
man, they had us thinking that the sale was happening on Monday, y'all.
I do not stay up late anymore with a 4-month-old, but I was staying up late refreshing my Twitter, expecting the news to drop overnight. waking up on Sunday morning like it was Christmas, and that has not happened. And I know there are a lot of moving parts. I understand that an almost $7 billion franchise probably takes a while, but I felt it felt like a little bit of a tease. I don't know how you felt when I was seeing a lot of that coming up.
Yeah, I thought it was a done deal. I was waiting for a press conference and all of that, but needless to say, there's just been another few names have been dropped in the hat. I think there's a Canadian billionaire. I'm not even going to try to attempt his name. It was rather lengthy.
Papadopoulos or something like that?
Yeah, something along those lines. He's from Canada. Apparently he's taking a tour, so he's going to throw his name in the hat, throw some money on the table. I think the one thing to think about that, my first thought was, there's a Canada series, right? You can see them. Maybe you get Washington to go up to Toronto. I know they used to do that with the Bills. So you never know. You may have a Canada series should he get in the mix. And then Magic Johnson's name came up to be able to join the Josh Harris, Andrew Rowell's bidding team. So that's enticing as well. It's interesting. I think that he brings a different dynamic that may be able to potentially open some doors and get some connections to, maybe get something moved into DC. I think that was the biggest question that Twitter had was, can Harris get something in DC in regards to a stadium, since he hasn't been able to get something in downtown Philly. I don't know, man. It's getting exciting, but all you got to do right now, guys, is just get your popcorn, hang tight, and enjoy the show.
Yeah, I think soon we're going to be popping bottles. It's just depending on who it is. I feel like the door is still slightly, this is just a guess. I feel like the door is still slightly cracked for a guy like Jeff Bezos, who could swoop in with a big time deal. And I saw a report that kind of feud between Dan Snyder and Jeff Bezos is a little overblown. I don't know if Jeff Bezos has any interest or anything like that. So I think at this point, I think the sale is happening or is going to happen. It's just a matter of who. I think we heard about the owners' meetings, that there's nothing on the agenda, but that they could always meet if something comes up. So I agree with you. I think it's coming soon. If you had to go to Bet Online and it was available, I'm not sure if it is, but maybe it is, and you had to put something down, who are you betting buys the Commanders?
He said Bet Online, not Bed Online.
No, Bet Online. BET, yeah. Don't sleep on it.
Let's say we sleeping in the metaverse now. The way I feel like right now, you kind of got to go with that Josh Harris group of people. I feel like they've apparently had the most luck. The reports were that their offer was going to get picked up, but once you start bringing in Magic Johnson, I think that he's, you start getting some strategic partners inside of this room of very wealthy individuals. And I think that it makes it very enticing to go that route. If you get just a Jeff Bezos, where there'll definitely be some innovative things, might be drones delivering your beer and hot dogs at the game. But I feel like having a mindset group, if you will, just a group of people who've done it at a high level, to come in to be able to drop some different ideas. It gives you a little bit more flexibility moving forward. So I would put my money on that Josh Harris group. They're probably a favorite in my eyes, but that's where I drop a couple bucks.
Yeah, if I might leave like a one penny or two just for Jeff Bezos, just in case, because you never know with that guy. But I'm with you. I think that Josh Harris, I think there's something to be said that he owns, has ownership stakes in a couple of different franchises. So he's done it before. It's not the fact that he just has a lot of money. It's that the fact that he has been involved with sports. He's also, like you said, brought in potentially bringing in Magic Johnson, who obviously is involved with sports, and there's something to be said there. It's a little bit different than I think, running Amazon Prime and you know what I mean? So there's some experience there, and it's not just who they have. And you're right. It's a whole group. It's not just one guy, which I think could be good and could make for some healthier, more level-headed decisions, which would be nice.
Yeah, we definitely need that back in Washington. Need to have strong leadership. I mean, this is a storied franchise, and it it deserves to be, the fans deserve, the franchise deserves to have strong representation, to make sure that they're making decisions that are really going to help push things forward, help improve, the facilities, help improve the stadiums, help improve the fan experience, alumni experience, all of those things. You need to make sure you address them. And I can see that working really, hopefully, with anybody that bids and purchases this team. But I just say whoever does, just be willing to listen to those that are out there, willing to offer their opinion. Not everything is good, but a lot of it is some pretty solid opinions that can help improve the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anything else out there? I feel like I'm trying to make up for like 2 weeks worth by jumping into this episode. But is there anything else out there that we're forgetting before we sign off for the day?
Man, the only thing I want to know is what was your favorite ride down there at Disney? What was your favorite one?
All right, so we're pretty big on Disney, so I have to admit it was the second time that I rode it, but the Guardians of the Galaxy ride at Epcot is top notch. If you like roller coasters and you kind of like an immersive experience, it's like both of those combined into one. It is a lot of fun. Good stuff. But yeah, Disney is so much fun. We're big Disney people, and our almost 3-year-old had the time of her life, and that was all that mattered. So now that I'm still catching up on sleep, that's what I keep reminding myself.
When did that one come out? The Guardians of the Galaxy.
It was last year sometime, May of last year.
All right.
Yeah. So I'll Disney is free until you're 3. Okay, so my daughter doesn't turn 3 for another couple of months, so we've kind of tried to take advantage of that a couple of times. So we're running out of it.
How come we didn't know that? How come I didn't know that?
Well, probably because my wife hasn't been in your ear, because she tries to tell everybody that, and she has done her research and she loves Disney more than the average bird. So that's the only reason I knew. I wouldn't have known that otherwise.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Armstrong family vacation coming up soon.
My goodness. Well, shoot, man. We only got the one. We got the one that's under 3.
Yeah, that's true.
And he barely getting to walking, so he wouldn't get to enjoy too much. But I don't know. Who knows, man? Who knows? That's good to know. If you're listening, go check it out. Do 2 things. Number 1, go to Disney because it's free before you're 3. And then number 2, check us out on all your favorite streaming platforms. That is like SiriusXM Radio, Watch Stadium, TuneIn Radio as well. You can get a listen to the Believe in Commander show and the other awesome shows on this Believe network. And then number 2, follow us on social media, y'all. Hit us up on Instagram. Hit us up on Twitter.
Trying to get the TikTok up and working.
We're going to get the TikTok going too. Yeah, we're getting the social media team rolling to help get some content out for you, video-wise, 60-second versions. On TikTok, we will not be dancing. No. I can guarantee you're not going to catch me over there.
Hey,
one of them wiggles or whatever.
if a sale happens, though, we might have to. That might be our debut video.
Oh, snap. We're going to be doing a stitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, you started out. We'll see. We'll see.
And then don't forget about our guys at Bet Online. Check them out. Use our code BELIEVE. Seriously, like Anthony said at the beginning, put in $100, you get 50 right back to use with that code BLEAV. Check them out. Like I said, XFL, MLB starts next week, and you can even make some prop bets on the draft and futures for the NFL. So check it all out there at betonline.ag. One more thing before we go. Is your bracket totally busted like mine?
I think mine is. We had the little Believe contest with everybody. I hadn't watched not Nan basketball game.
Really?
I didn't watch any other college basketball leading in. So I was truly picking blind, and I don't think I picked the Fairleigh Dickinson win.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I had UCLA. They got beat by Gonzaga in a heartbreaker, and that's about all I had left. So yeah, it's all busted. But love the upsets, and I'm sure you can find some of those last games on there as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate Adam Aniba for joining us from the Burgundy and Gold Report. You guys check him out. Check us out on all those socials and all those different platforms, and we'll talk to you soon. And we'll be ready. We're going to pop bottles here soon whenever this transaction happens, and we'll be ready to talk about it.
Yes, indeed. And so for Brian Murphy, I'm Anthony Armstrong. Thanks for listening, folks. We will see you on the next one on the Believe in Commander show.